The Galactic Academy's metallurgy hall gleamed with chrome and energy fields. 37 students from across known space stood before their forging stations, each equipped with molecular furnaces, gravity hammers, and enough raw materials to craft weapons worthy of their warrior traditions. Professor Croth 9, a towering Vorlaxian with crystalline skin, addressed the class. Today, you will forge a blade using traditional methods from your homeworlds. This is not merely an exercise in craftsmanship, it is a connection to your species' martial heritage. You have one solar cycle. Begin. The hall erupted into controlled chaos. The Draxian twins superheated titanium alloys with their plasma torches. Tfera, the proud Zenthari warrior, began layering rare metals in the ancient pattern welding technique her people had perfected over millennia. Even young Kixnael, whose species had only achieved spaceflight 3 generations ago, confidently activated his molecular assembler. At Station 17, Emma Rodriguez stood motionless. The other students had barely noticed the human. Earth was a recent addition to the Galactic Council, barely a century since first contact. Humans were considered curiosities, soft-skinned, weak-boned, lacking natural weapons or armor. They'd clawed their way to the stars through stubborn determination, but few expected them to excel at institutions like the Academy. Emma surveyed her workstation, then looked down at the materials requisition tablet. She scrolled through options: steel, titanium, carbon composites, ceramic alloys. Her finger hovered over the confirmation button, then withdrew. "Excuse me, Professor." Emma's voice cut through the industrial symphony. Croth 9 turned, his multifaceted eyes refracting the forge light. "Yes, Cadet Rodriguez? I need to access the biological waste reclamation system." Silence rippled outward from her station. Tfera's hammer paused mid-swing. The Draxian twins exchanged confused glances. "The waste system?" Croth 9's translator struggled with the inflection. "Cadet, you have access to the finest materials in the galaxy. Why would you?" "Traditional methods, sir. You said to use traditional methods from our homeworlds." The professor's crystalline face remained unreadable, but something in his posture shifted, curiosity, perhaps. "Very well. You have clearance." Emma left the hall amid whispers and barely concealed laughter. The human was going to forge a blade from garbage. 6 hours into the exercise, Emma returned. In her hand, she carried what looked like a femur, long, pale, and distinctly organic. The other students recoiled. "Is that bone?" Kixnael's voice carried a mixture of horror and fascination. "Synthetic protein matrix from the bioprinter," Emma explained, setting it on her workstation. "Close enough to the real thing for demonstration purposes. My ancestors didn't always have the luxury of metal." She activated not the molecular furnace, but the station's most primitive tool, a simple grinding wheel. What followed was methodical, almost meditative. While others hammered and welded, Emma ground. She shaped the bone with patience that seemed almost alien in the high-tech environment. The grinding wheel sang a different song than the plasma torches, older, more primal. Professor Croth 9 found himself watching her more than the others. There was something unsettling about the human's focus, the way her hands moved with practiced confidence over material most species would consider refuse. "Bone knives," Emma said without looking up, somehow sensing his attention. "Humans made them for hundreds of thousands of years before we ever touched metal. Paleolithic hunters brought down megafauna with sharpened bone and stone. We didn't have natural claws or fangs, Professor. We had to make our own." She held up the bone, now carved into a wicked blade shape. "We're a species that turns everything into a weapon. Rocks. Sticks. Bones of animals we killed. Eventually, we ran out of things to weaponize from our environment." "So you stopped?" Tfera asked, drawn in despite herself. Emma's smile was sharp as the blade she was crafting. "No. We started weaponizing our environment itself. We learned to make metal sharper than any natural fang. We split the atom. We turned lasers from cutting tools to weapons. We took the peaceful radiation of space and learned to weaponize it. She returned to her grinding. But it all started with this. With taking what we had, even if it was just the bones of our prey, and making it deadly. As the solar cycle drew to a close, the students presented their work. The blades were magnificent, gleaming alloys that could cut through starship hulls, molecularly aligned edges that would never dull, energy fields that could slice through dimensional barriers. Then Emma stepped forward with her bone blade. It looked primitive. Unimpressive. The surface wasn't perfectly smooth like the others, it had a texture, an organic quality that seemed out of place among the technological marvels. Cadet Rodriguez, Croft 9 said carefully. Your blade is functional. But surely you understand it cannot compare to. May I demonstrate, Professor? Something in her tone made him pause. Proceed. Emma approached the testing dummy, a standard combat android program to defend itself. The other students had tested their blades against it already, evaluating cutting power and durability. The android activated its shields. What happened next would be discussed in academy halls for years to come. Emma didn't try to cut through the shield or overpower it with superior technology. Instead, she moved like water, reading the android's defensive patterns with uncanny precision. She found the gap between shield emitters, a space barely 3 centimeters wide, and drove her bone blade through it. The blade punched through the android's armored chassis and out the other side. Emma twisted and pulled the blade free. It hadn't even chipped. Humans, she said quietly, withdrawing from the disabled android, learned to fight before we learned to forge metal. We learned to hunt before we mastered fire. We didn't have the luxury of waiting for the perfect tool, Professor. We made do with what we had, and we made it work. She held up the bone blade, its edge catching the light. This isn't just a weapon. It's a reminder of what we are. Every species here has fangs, claws, natural armor, or ancient metallurgical traditions stretching back millennia. We have adaptability. We have the willingness to turn anything, even the bones of our dead, into survival. Professor Croft 9 was silent for a long moment. Then his crystalline face shifted into what might have been a smile. Full marks, Cadet Rodriguez. You have honored both your assignment and your species' heritage. As the class filed out, Tvera approached Emma. That was educational, human. And slightly terrifying. Emma grinned. Welcome to humanity. We've been terrifying things for 300,000 years. We just got better tools recently. She walked out of the forge hall, bone blade in hand, leaving behind a class of aliens with a newfound respect, and perhaps a touch of fear, for the species that had sharpened bones in the dark and called it progress.